Good day everyone, so for today, we will be taking a trip back in time to explore a super exciting period in art history, the years between 1885 to 1920. This was a time when artists were breaking free from traditional rules and experimenting with new ideas. We will be diving into some of the coolest art movements of the time, like Post-Impressionism, Fauvism, Expressionism, Cubism, Futurism, Suprematism, Constructivism, and Stijl. We will be discovering the characteristics, history, artists, and iconic artworks that define this exciting era in art. So let's start with Post-Impressionism. Post-Impressionism is an art style that came after Impressionism. Artists in this movement use bright colors and bold brushstrokes to express emotions and ideas in their paintings. They focus more on shapes, patterns, and symbols rather than just capturing the way things look. Post-Impressionism was a predominantly French art movement that developed roughly between 1886 and 1905 from the last Impressionist exhibition to the birth of Fauvism. Post-Impressionism emerged as a reaction against Impressionist concern for the naturalistic depiction of light and color. So here are some artworks from Post-Impressionism. The first one is the Mont Saint-Mitois, Scene from Bellevue by Paul Cézanne, the father of Impressionism. Next is the Self-Portrait with Halo and Snake by Paul Gauguin. Next is the Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. And lastly, the Sunday Afternoon on the Island of La Grande Jatte by Georges Seurat. Those are the key figures and their works during the Post-Impressionism period. That's all for the Post-Impressionism.
So for Fauvism is an artistic style characterized by the use of bold and non-naturalistic colors and simple forms. This movement marked a significant departure from traditional approaches focusing on the emotional impact of color and brushworks over realistic representation. For its history and origin, Fauvism originated in France around 1904, with its most active period between 1905 to 1908. The term Fauve means wild beast from French. It was coined by the art critic named Louis Basselles during the 1905 Salon d'Automne exhibition in Paris. So one of the most famous Fauvist works is Henri Matisse's titled Woman with Hat, painted in 1905. This piece actually shocked the world with its vivid, almost flashing colors and its loose, expressive brushstrokes. This painting also exemplifies the Fauvist emphasis on the color as a primary means of expression rather than merely a tool for depicting reality. So this name reflected both wild nature of the works displayed by artists like Henri Matisse, André Guérin, and Maurice Duplantic. So in conclusion, Fauvism's legacy lies in its bold experimentation and its celebration of color and form.
To continue our lesson, let's now proceed with Expressionism. So what is Expressionism? Well, Expressionism was an influential art in the late 19th and early 20th century that can be seen in art, literature, music, theater, and architecture. In addition to that, countries such as France, Germany, Austria, and Norway had an artistic tendency in reaction to it. For its history or origin, Expressionism started in 1905 as an artistic movement that quickly spread through Europe in resistance to the bourgeois culture and search for new forms of creativity that later became Expressionism. Expressionist artists can be characterized through words such as self, psyche, body, sexuality, nature, and spirit. In addition, Vincent van Gogh, Edvard Munch, and James Ensor were one of the first artists to go beyond the literal representation to express their emotional and mental state. For core principles, Expressionism depicts and expresses subjective emotions rather than the objective reality through vivid, jarring, violent, or dynamic application of formal elements. This gives artists the freedom to put their emotions into the canvas and explore freely as they please. While in Germany, the Brücke and the Blaureiter groups were the most associated, and it was heavily influenced by mysticism, the Middle Ages, primitive times, and the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. A bohemian collective of expressionist artists opposing the bourgeois culture of Germany formed a group called Brücke in Dresden in 1905 with a desire to connect the past and present. The artists wanted to find a way to escape the confinement of modern middle-class life through the use of colors, simple approach to form, and free sexuality in their work. On the other hand, Vasily Kandinsky founded the Blaureiter in 1911 to keep the spiritual value of art alive. On the other hand, Egon Schiele and Oskar Kokoschka were the two main figures of Austrian Expressionism. Egon Schiele and Oskar Kokoschka lived in Vienna in the late 19th and early 20th century, where moral repression and sexual hypocrisy were a significant part in the development of Expressionism art, but they brushed it off with death, violence, longing, and sex as their topics. As a result, Kokoschka was known for his portraits and his capacity to reveal the inner nature of his sitters, while for Schiele is his raw and brutally honest portrayals of aloof yet desperate sexuality. In Norway, Edvard Munch was one of the artists who made big impact on the German and Austrian Expressionists. He was well known in Vienna from Secession exhibitions and the 1909 Kotschko. Munch is also famous for the Scream, as well as his painting of a figure on a bridge with the sunset behind him, letting out a hair-raising and desperate scream. In conclusion, Expressionism became an outlet for artists to express their emotional and mental state. This also gave new perspective to many people now that they are able to glance in the mind of different artists.
Good day everyone, now let's move on to Cubism. We're going to explore a fascinating movement in art history. It was a revolution and a complete shift in how artists saw the world and how they express it. It also challenged the traditional perspectives and changed the course of art history. So what is Cubism? Cubism is an early 20th century avant-garde art movement that originated in France. It revolutionized European painting and sculpture and inspired related movements in music, literature, and architecture. Before Cubism, art was all about realism. Artists aimed to capture the world exactly as we see it, with clear perspectives and recognizable forms. But then came Cubism, and everything changed. Unlike traditional painting, which aimed to create a realistic representations of objects, Cubism broke down objects into the components part and resembled them in an abstract way. This created a fragmented and multiple-faced view of reality. Now, let's move on to the key figures of Cubism. The pioneers of Cubism were Pablo Picasso and George Braque. Their collaborations in early 1900s led to the development of this groundbreaking style. Picasso and Braque experimented with different techniques such as overlapping forms, multiple viewpoints, and geometric shapes to create new visual language. Look at this painting by George Braque. It's different, right? Instead of a single clear view, you see multiple viewpoints, fragmented shapes, and geometric forms. The artist was taken a subject apart and put it together in a completely new way. This painting showcases the use of analytical cubism, where objects are broken down into their component parts and reassembled in a fragmented way. Notice how the violent palette are depicted through a series of overlapping planes and geometric shapes, creating a complex and abstract composition. Just like I mentioned earlier, one of the key figures and pioneers of Cubism is Pablo Picasso. His painting La Demoiselle d'Avignon is a landmark work. It's both fragmented and challenging. It helped define the core elements of Cubism. This painting with the bold lines, fragmented forms, and angular faces mark a radical departure from traditional portraiture. These women in this painting are depicted in a distorted and unsettling manner, challenging conventional and notions of beauty and femininity. So, what makes Cubism so unique? Well, it's all about the breaking the rules. Cubist artists, first, it shows multiple perspectives at once. Imagine seeing an object from the front, the side, and the top, all of those at the same time. That's what Cubism does. Second, it uses geometric shapes. They break down objects into basic shapes like cubes, cones, and cylinders, like a building pictures of blocks. Third, it flattens the spaces. In the Cubist painting, it's hard to tell where foregrounds end and background begins. Everything feels like it's on the same plane. Lastly, it focuses on color and texture. Color and textures become important tools for creating visual interest and adding to the abstract nature of work. Talking about the impact of Cubism, Cubism had a profound impact on the world, challenging the traditional perspectives and paving way for the further experimentation and explorations. Its influence can still be seen in contemporary art. And artists continue to explore its most innovative techniques and ideas. To conclude, Cubism was a revolutionary art that challenged traditional perspective and opened up new possibilities of artistic expression. Through the work of Picasso and Mark and other artists, Cubism continues to inspire and captivate the audience today.
So let's move on to Futurism. Futurism was an Italian art movement of the early 20th century which aimed to capture the dynamism and energy of the modern world in art. Futurists were well versed in the latest developments in science and philosophy and particularly fascinated with aviation and cinematography. Futurist artists denounced the past as they felt the weight of mass cultures was extremely oppressive, particularly in Italy, and instead proposed an art celebrating modernity and its industry and technology. So in 1908, the Italian poet Filippo Tommaso Marinetti swerved to miss a cyclist and crashed his car in a ditch. The experience of the old bicycle versus the modern car inspired him to write his manifesto of Futurism, a movement that would conquer nostalgia and tradition. By 1910, the young artists Umberto Boccioni, Carlo Carra, and Luigi Russolo has joined Marinetti's movement. They suggested Futurism could reach beyond just literature and poetry, and the three artists wrote the manifesto of Futurist painters. They sent this to their colleagues, Gino Severini and Giacomo Balla, who signed the manifesto. Together, these artists formed the core group of Futurist artists. So these are the key figures and their works. First is the Manifesto of Futurism. It is a manifesto written by the Italian poet Filippo Tommaso Marinetti and published in 1909. Next is the Harnessing the Future by Umberto Boccioni. Next is the La Stazione de Milano, or the Station in Milan by Carlo Carra. Next is the Dynamic Hieroglyphic of the Bal Tabiring by Gino Severini. And lastly is the Giacomo Ballas with his Futurism work, Dynamism of a Dog on a Leash. So during the second decade of the 20th century, the movement's influence radiated outward across most of Europe, most significantly to the Russian avant-garde. The most significant results of the movement were in the visual arts and poetry. So that's all for the Futurism.
Now we're moving on to Suprematism. What is Suprematism? So to be honest, I'm not really familiar with the word and the art style itself, so I did some searching and this is what I came up with. So Suprematism is a groundbreaking art movement that emerged in Russia in the early 20th century, which stands as a pivotal force in the development of abstract art. As an art style, suprematism completely rejects representational art, meaning it doesn't depict recognizable objects or scenes from the real world. Instead, it focuses on abstract, geometric shapes, primarily squares, rectangles, circles, and triangles. These forms are stripped of any symbolic or emotional connotations, existing purely as themselves. Suprematism, founded by the Russian artist Kazimir Malevich in 1913, sought to liberate art from the constraints of representation and embrace the supremacy of pure feeling. Malevich, already a prominent painter, felt a growing dissatisfaction with the representational art of his time. He believed that art should transcend the limitations of the objective world and explore the realm of pure, non-objective expression. The seeds of suprematism were sown in Malevich's design for the sets and costumes of the futurist opera Victory Over the Sun in 1913. The opera's aim was to break with traditional theatrical conventions and embrace a clear, pure, logical Russian language. Malevich's designs, characterized by simple geometric forms and stark colors, foreshadowed his later suprematist work. Kazimir Malevich is the undisputed leader of suprematism. His iconic black square, in 1915, is a simple black square painted on a white background, is considered a cornerstone of the movement. Now, next is Malevich's white on white, which he made in the 1918, a near invisible white square against a white background, further pushed the boundaries of abstract art. These works, along with Malevich's other suprematist paintings, represent the movement's core principles of non-objectivity and pure feeling. Other notable suprematist artists include Alexandra Exter, Olga Rozanova, Ivan Klian, Ivan Puny, and Nadezhda Udaltsova. These artists contributed to the development of suprematism, exploring its potential in different media and applications. So, I guess to sum it up, suprematism is a radical and influential art movement, stands as a testament to the power of pure artistic expression. By rejecting representation and embracing the supremacy of feeling, suprematism redefined the possibilities of art. Its impact on abstract art and its enduring legacy continue to shape the artistic landscape today. As we continue to explore the vast realm of art, suprematism serves as a reminder of the boundless potential of human creativity and the transformative power of pure artistic expression. That's all for suprematism.
Constructivism was a concept that emerged from Russia in the early 20th century. At its core, constructivism operates from the position that art should serve a social purpose that extends beyond aesthetics. It was heavily influenced by ideas of the Russian Revolution and the Marxist revolutionary theory, which placed an emphasis on creative autonomy, individuality, and self-expression. This artistic style focused on the objective truth of the physical world rather than relying on subjective emotion or imagination. It was spearheaded by artists such as Vladimir Tatlin, Alexander Rodchenko, and elites. It possessed three characteristics. First, constructivism uses geometric shapes and forms to create artwork that embodies a collective revolutionary spirit. Artists like Alexander Rodchenko use industrial materials in combination with cubes, circles, squares, and other geometric shapes to create abstract artwork that were seen as a symbolic of the new era of Russian society. One of the best examples of this is the Beat the Whites with Red by L. Lisitsky. Second, use of industrial materials. The use of industrial materials is essential to constructivism in art. Concrete, glass, metal, and other commonplace materials were employed by artists such as Alexander Rodchenko to create abstract sculptures that serve as a visual representation of the spirit of the revolution. One of the best examples of this is the Monument to the Third International by Vladimir Tatlin. Third, bright colors and strong lines. Strong lines and vivid primary colors like red and yellow are used in constructivism art to make powerful visual messages. Geometric forms and shapes were employed by artists such as Casimir and Popova to accentuate the spirit of revolution that Russian society needed in the early 1900s. One of the best examples of this is the Beer-Wheel Drive Out Homebrew by Alexander Rodchenko. So, the common themes are first, creative autonomy and individuality. Artwork may accurately reflect the creator's own aesthetic, viewpoint, and vision. They were able to make their own unique statement while yet staying true to certain overarching themes or stylistic guidelines since they were self-expressive. And one of the best example of this is the Enthusiasm Symphony of the Donbass by Vertov. Second, objective truth versus subjective emotion. Constructivism painters held that vibrant colors, shapes, and forms could convey subjective feeling, while abstract patterns and lines may reveal objective reality. As a result, they were able to produce visually stunning and emotionally stirring pieces. One of the best examples of this is The Oppressed People of the Whole World by Gustavo. Third, Marxist revolutionary theory. Constructivist art and Marxist revolutionary theory had a significant impact on the movement. Marxist revolutionary theory thought which stressed utilizing art as a vehicle for social transformation and cultural upheaval, served as an inspiration for many constructivist painters, and one of the best examples of this is the Russian exhibition poster by L. Lisitsky.
We speak of concrete and not abstract painting because nothing is more concrete, more real than a line, a color, a surface. A quote by Theo van Doesburg. This explains the style. This quote emphasizes the fundamental elements of painting, lines, colors, and surfaces as the building blocks of visual art, by referring to concrete rather than abstract. This style refers to a reaction against the horrors of World War I. It was utopian in nature in the sense that the members of the style believed art to have a transformative power. For them, art was a means towards social and spiritual redemption. The style art was seen as a universal visual language which fit with what its artists wanted for the modern era, a new, spiritualized world. The visual language of the style artist consisted of geometric forms, which were precisely rendered. They were searching for the laws governing the harmony of the world and wanted to reveal them through their art, their lines, squares, and rectangles in primary colors. This style emerged in 1917 and ended in 1931. This style emerged in the aftermath of World War I, a period marked by a desire for new forms of expression that reflected the changing realities of modern life. The movement sought to create a universal visual language that transcended cultural boundaries. Yes, this style originated in the Netherlands. The movement was founded in the city of Amsterdam in 1917, primarily by Dutch artists and architects, including Piet Mondrian, Theo van Doesburg, and Gerrit Rietveld. Its keywords are geometric forms, primary colors, form, and function. Its key artists are Piet Mondrian, Theo van Doesburg, Bart van der Lek, and Gerrit Rietveld. Here is an example of the style. Arithmetic Composition, a painting by Theo van Doesburg. Arithmetic composition reflects the artist's experimentation with abstract geometric shapes within a diagonal composition, resulting in a dimensional plane that would not have the same visual effect had the blocks been positioned vertically or horizontally. The work's diagonal configuration, combination of pure positive and negative space, and the incorporation of a curious backward L in the upper left corner, which consumes one block, creates a sense of movement, making the shapes appear as if they are alternately moving toward and away from the viewer. Another example of this style is Piet Mondrian's composition in red, blue, and yellow in 1930. This is one of Mondrian's artwork in his composition series, and represents the height of Mondrian's purity and sobriety in his art. thick black lines cut between color fields, creating squares and rectangles of only primary colors and non-colors. For a quick recap, Impressionism captures the fleeting effects of natural light. Post-Impressionism is a soft revolt against Impressionism. Fauvism and Expressionism uses harsh colors and flat surfaces with emotion-distorting form. Cubism, Futurism, Supremativism, Constructivism, and Stijl are all pre- and post-World War I experiments that introduces new forms to express modern life. That is all for this video report. Thank you.